Washington State's Attorney General vowing to fight domestic extremism by creating a disinformation board. Take that, Nina Jankowicz, Mary Poppins. Seattle radio host Jason Rantz joins me now. Jason, great to see you as always. This measure would crack down on, quote, various forms of extremist and political violence like threats, coercion, and intimidation, online disinformation, extremist recruitment, and government infiltration efforts, and the spread of extreme white supremacism and anti-government ideologies. So, Jason, if you say you don't like the government, per that last line, that could soon be a crime in your state, right?
It could. And, they say this is about violence, but it's not about violence. It's actually about speech. We already have laws on the books that very clearly address violence. What they're trying to do with this commission is create what they're calling a public health approach to some of these ideologies. And specifically, they mention as apparently tied to white supremacy is anti-CRT, anti-mask mandates, those kinds of positions that we've seen over the last couple years, including, pushing back against gender extremism, is supposed to be an example of domestic violence and extremism. And of course, what they're not talking about is going after Antifa violence or BLM-related violence. They are singularly focused on the right. And what this commission will end up doing is recommending a whole bunch of different laws, legislation that can not only lead to imprisoning people for having certain kinds of political positions, but also forcing them into counseling. And that's really where this goes so far over the line.
What the scary irony of all this is that the AG could criminally charge constituents who protest the legislature adopting these very laws, and that is absolute insanity. Want to get your thoughts on this? The USPS, United States Postal Service, planning to buy thousands of electric vehicles from Ford. This just weeks after the automaker signs a deal with a Chinese battery firm. In case you didn't know by now, the batteries that we all need for this Green New Deal come from China. So, Jason, yet another example of this White House and now Ford funneling money to our biggest adversary and basically funding our own demise.
Yeah, we're becoming more vulnerable as a result of this. Now, I don't think it's a bad idea to go to EVs when we're talking about these kinds of cars. I think overall, regardless of whether or not you like EVs, they do save us money in the long term. But constantly pushing us towards electric vehicles when we are not ready in this country to be able to manufacture and distribute these very specific pieces of technology, the batteries, means that we are now relying yet again on China. So we've already given up so much manufacturing to China, which again makes our economy more vulnerable. And now all in the name of environmentalism, which I consider myself an environmentalist, but I don't want to do it to the detriment of national security and our own economic interests.
And as a taxpayer, you don't want about $3 billion of your taxpayer dollars literally going into the hands and the pockets of the enemy. Jason Rantz, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. Great to have you back, sir. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it.
No problem. Our Secretary